Hey SEOs and content marketers, say goodbye to crazy spreadsheet mashups and experience unprecedented connectivity between your SEO planning and reporting data. Introducing Audience Key, technology for keyword mapping, content brief automation, and rank tracking that form an SEO strategy system providing unparalleled feedback loops between planning, reporting, and optimization activities. Put your time and energy into strategy, not data upkeep. Visit audiencekey.com and apply for a free trial today. Hey everyone, welcome to Webcology here on WMR.FM. It is the 14th of December, 2023. 2 weeks, 2 short weeks, and not even 2 weeks from Christmas. This is Jim Hedger from Always Media and Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls.
Hey everybody.
And apologies from, mostly from me. We didn't have a show last week, and the shows the last previous couple weeks, I've been very, very distracted. Probably gone through one of the hardest months I've gone through in my life. My father-in-law was in a coma for 4 weeks and passed away early last week. I had the funeral on Thursday and have been in full reaction mode during the last month, and especially during the last week. So this time last week, I was sadly at a funeral, and I'm really sorry we didn't have an episode. Things should be approximating normal sometime in the coming year. Oh my God, it's December 14th. Kristine, 2023 is over, practically speaking.
Yes, I have to move in 4 days and have no place to live yet.
That's kind of scary.
A little bit. So it's going to be an interesting interview for me. Hopefully it'll all be over Monday and I can relax the rest part of the year.
Yeah, now for concerned listeners, Kristine, do you anticipate doing the show from, say, a bus shelter or the library in the near future, or are you going to be housed?
I actually don't know if I'm going to be housed, to be honest. We have a weird thing in the state of Nevada where you can't actually start applying till you're 3 weeks out from your move date. And the place I'm applying at right now has been dragging their heels on income verification. So if worse comes to worse, I will be, finding a storage unit, moving it all into there and getting an Airbnb for a week or two while I figure it out. So, but I will not be homeless. I don't want to be sorry about that. Just stressful. I tell the movers that I've, got for Monday, where are you moving? And I'm like, I really don't know yet.
Coming to you live from the fabulous sewer system of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Exactly. At least the good thing is I do live in an area with, 100,000 hotel rooms. So if worse comes to worse, I need a few days in a hotel. I'll do that. But I'd rather not. I'd rather move my stuff directly into a place than paying the mover's choice.
Yeah, this is the last weeks of December, and it's worth thinking about. I mean, if this were previous years, like say a decade or more ago, we'd all be in Chicago right now, or just getting home from Chicago from the last show of the year. That would have been an SES show, but they don't happen anymore since Search Engine Strategies doesn't really exist. And the whole SES world sort of slowed down substantially 17 and a half years ago when Danny Sullivan, who started Search Engine Strategies and the Search Engine Watch newsletter, which turned into at the time the premier trade magazine, his contract negotiations with the company that owned the conference series failed, and he quit, went off to start his own thing, Search Engine Land. That launched 17 years ago this week on December 11th, 2006. And so Danny did it twice. He started Search Engine Watch, which pretty much formed the SEO industry, started the search marketing industry, or popularized it, and then left, started the Search Engine Watch or Search Engine Strategies conference series, which was incredibly successful. Left that organization, started a new one, Third Door Media, and him and Chris Elwell built the the search engine land empire, along with the series of search conferences. Oh my God, Kristine, I'm flaking SEL's conference series name.
SMX?
SMX, thank you. The
That's
Search
right.
Marketing Expo series of conferences. Again, that all launched 17 years ago today, or this week. I just find that remarkable how much time has passed and how strong that brand remains.
Right? It's amazing. It's amazing all the things Danny has done for the industry.
Well,
Now that he's at Google.
well, indeed, Danny actually left Third Door Media and the SMX conference series, Search Marketing Expo conference series. Was that like 5 years ago? He retired from the journalism and conference side of search, and then 6 months later was picked up by Google, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't remember the exact dates, but something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the other thing about SEL, and something I think that should be commended. It survived its founder and survived it quite strongly, which you can't say that about most publications.
True. Very true.
So anyway, congratulations, Search Engine Land, Danny, Chris, Danny, and the entire crew over there. Well done. So I got a big confession, Kristine.
What's that?
As I said at the beginning of this episode, I've been incredibly distracted the last few weeks. It's been,
Yeah, rightfully so, though.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I feel incredibly out of touch. If you stop paying attention for 1 week in this industry, you're a million miles behind. And I feel like I've been sort of floating around for the last 4 weeks. So I'm honestly, I am feeling like, what do you mean Google faked an entire AI series of AI videos? Why would they do that? I mean, you just feel like so left out of the picture, right?
You do. Luckily for you, I'm an obsessive reader, so
Where do
I
you want
read.
to go?
Why don't we could start with that one, or we could start with, why ChatGPT is getting lazy and sassy.
Well, okay, this one you could have seen coming like maybe a mile away or a year ago. As I understand it, and please, correct me if I'm wrong here, but ChatGPT at one time was learning off a corpus of knowledge that was, say, everything that was ever written before what, September 2023, something like that.
Yeah, I forget the last update date, but it's recent but not current.
Okay, so ChatGPT 4 and iterations after that have been training on the open web. And in the last year, I mean, Google has, I think a stat came out from Google the other day that they have over 3 trillion pages in their index. Now, a billion is more than I can personally fathom. Like that's a lot of stuff. A billion dots is more than I can possibly imagine, right? A trillion is so far beyond that. The amount of content on the internet is growing rapidly and growing exponentially, especially since the development of AI. It's estimated, believe it or not, over a quarter of the content on the web right now has been written in the last year by AI.
Yeah.
Isn't that mind blowing?
It's
So,
mind blowing, but I figured it'd be that fast. That's why people say Google doesn't care about AI. I'm like, no.
okay, so in the last 6 to 8 months or so, we've had numerous AI models training on the open web, including ChatGPT, the newest iterations of ChatGPT, and they're not only training on information that had in one way or another bit gone through some form of vetting verification. Like, so if you find in a library or an encyclopedia, it's is almost certainly been vetted somehow, right? Stuff you find on the open web has often not been vetted whatsoever at all. Nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so ChatGPT is now training on AI created content. Not
Well,
all the content is training on is AI created, but a good portion of it, a large portion of it is. And this
yeah.
is the snake eating its own tail phenomena. We knew it was coming. I mean, I didn't think it would happen this fast, but we knew it was coming.
Well, that's more the Grok thing. which we'll talk about. The laziness thing is more they just think they're following what humans do in winter, which is slow down, and it's getting sassier and telling people it can't complete this. Or why don't you told one user, why don't you go find it yourself? And literally that's what it said. And ChatGPT is like, you can Google that. It
Maybe
literally
it was
told
a
it.
particular now it's possible that was a particularly stupid question to which the most written answer is just
Possibly.
Google it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, obviously, when these things sound human, they're not. They're just repeating whatever they're trained on, and regurgitating it in a different format. But it is kind of funny that literally people who are told to go Google it, like you're an OpenAI, you're like asking a question. It's like, I basically don't have time for you. Just go Google it. Like you could have found that. It basically told. I wish I had the exact quote. I can't
So
find it right now, but
so
basically
in
told the
some
user
instances
you could have found that quicker than asking me. Basically, is what it said.
so in some instances ChatGPT is turning into a teenager.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought when I read it. I said
So
it sounds exactly like a teenager. It's like, don't bother me. Like, go find it yourself. I've got stuff to do.
now, okay, so just to reiterate, and I think Kristine, in any other circumstance, will be the very first person to look at you dead in the eyes and say, "This is not a real person. It's a large language model.
Yes,
It acts a certain way, and one of the ways it does not act is human. It just pretends to,
it just
but it doesn't
pretends
even do
to.
that. It's just doing what it thinks a human would do, because that's
Oh,
what."
not yeah. It's like a
And
big parrot sits around the world and is taking in everything everyone says, except they say it online. And then the parrot says it back. And then you're like, how did the parrot know to say that? Parrot didn't know to say that. Parrot's just parroting what it heard, right?
what
That's the same kind of thing.
happens when the parrot completely trashes on its creator or its owner? Grok, the AI created by Elon Musk and the crew over at Twixter, at X, when asked to roast Musk, didn't just roast him. I mean, that was like a flame, burn, destroy mode. It went to town on Musk, actually, up and down. Is that a do you reckon that's a natural occurrence, or did they program it to do that?
I don't know this story, so you'll have to
Okay, so apparently the AI
I
from
missed
X
something.
is called Grok.
Right,
Grok is
right,
trained
right,
on the open web, completely on the
right,
open web. It's also trained on Twixter.
right.
It refuses to use homophobic slurs.
Oh, that's surprising.
It refuses to say there are only two genders. It refuses to go down the transphobic road whatsoever. It will not go there. You cannot make Grok say a trans woman is not a woman. Grok won't do that, which is surprising given its maker and his proclivity to dead name persons, and to suggest that trans persons are not the gender they express.
And that actually
Um,
really, as you know, large language models work. It's really not that surprising because most people, not all, most people accept that that's a thing
but
and speak about it. So the training would have far more people talking in agreement
I
than just
guess what
humans.
is surprising is the way Grok was programmed was to be a foul-mouthed,
Yes, it was.
straight up, like a guy you're sitting beside at the bar, and it's taken its users to task for trying to get it to break its rules.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I've seen the tweets on that. I didn't know the story about Musk himself, but I did see the tweets on the transgender portion.
I urge you to look up for a good laugh. Look up Grok's impression of Elon Musk. It's pretty brutal. It's really it's a good roast master, somebody who does comedy for a living, would be hard pressed to write a better takedown. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I just found the story. Elon Musk slammed by his own AI bot.
It's
It was from
phenomenal.
yesterday. I was traveling yesterday. That's why I didn't see it.
Actually, that happened a few days ago. But
Oh, did
my
it?
question
Okay.
is this for real, or did they just make it to do this? But then again, I put that story against other ones where apparently Grok has a very, very hard ethical line that it will not cross. Impressive. But ChatGPT is training on itself. It's training on crap content.
Well,
You garbage in, garbage out. This is what's going to happen.
but Grok does not use ChatGPT. So
Oh,
there
and
was a
Grok's different. Grok's weird.
yeah. Well, Grok trains mostly on Twitter, but there is a story. There was a thing this week where it looked like Grok said that it was running on the OpenAI platform, but it's not. It just likes to ingest a lot of ChatGPT content,
Mhm.
which
So
is
Grok is training on
odd.
ChatGPT output as well.
Yes, a lot of it. It does a lot of ChatGPT and then of course Twitter output. So basically it's actually a big problem for large language models. According to the researchers, it's the recursive nature of what they call the LLM loop. And that's what they believe caused the issue with Grok. And it says that it appears this is from Fast Company. What appears to have happened here is Elon Musk has taken a less capable model, says Russ Anderson, one of the co-authors of the original paper that coined the term model collapse. And he's then fine-tuned it, seems, by getting lots of chat GPT produced content from various places. So what this would do is called model collapse. And model collapse is basically what you're saying, eating its tail.
Mm.
So if you get an LLM bot that's doing this without human supervision, basically according to Anderson, says they can produce all sorts of weird, um, I'll just say poop. And as soon as you've got an LLM bot that's just spewing all sorts of stuff on the internet, it could be doing all sorts of bad things you don't know about. So apparently that's why Grok is doing all these things. And Grok is not a well-trained model. And then it's training on a lot of chat GPT output. I'm not sure why you would do that since that can all be wrong. Um, but anyway, so that's what they're doing. Maybe he thought he would get the benefits all the training ChatGPT has had by training on the output, like making it sound confident and human-like and things like that. But according to the researchers, the more we have these LLMs and the more they ingest each other's or their own content, the much less reliable they will be as any sort of source of facts or information because their data sets get increasingly less reliable because LLMs make stuff up. So that's how some of this stuff happened. But it is most likely on the transphobia comments that I know a red team AI researcher who I can't name here, but explained to me that the protections all come on the output. So when you put stuff into the model takes whatever you give it. They, as the people that defend the models, have to make sure that the output does not put out things that they don't want it to. And so I would assume if it's taking that hard a line on transphobic content, that internally on the output they have put in filters that would make that very, very difficult to produce. Not just the training, because the training could produce negative things if you just chose the right words to get around the training.
Apparently, many of the how should we say it, fans of what's happened at Twixter are incredibly frustrated that they can't get
Yeah,
Grok to be a jerk. So
yeah. They're the people that that perpetuate these very transphobic ideologies are not happy that Twitter's Grok is not transphobic.
you know what? I just think they're not happy, to be honest. I mean,
I believe so too. Yeah,
all in all, I just think they're
that's
just not happy people to
I
begin with.
agree.
Okay,
I agree.
so what we've been talking about again, the recursive nature of reading, and you ever play the telephone game? You know the telephone game where you start at one end of
I
the room, and by the time you
yes,
get it, and you repeat a message into somebody's ear, and they repeat it to the person next to them, and so on and so on. So by the time you get to the other side of the room, the message has changed entirely. That's a great fear of constantly re-summarizing the same summaries. Just doing it
yeah,
over and over and over again will
yeah.
essentially change the message that was originally expressed.
Especially because
And
there's errors introduced into those messaging. So
the errors may well be introduced and
yeah,
repropagated over and over and over again
yeah.
without the intervention of an editor to or a fact checker. So this is of concern. There is AI's work in journalism, increasing
Yes.
work in journalism. A deal between OpenAI and Axel Springer um, will allow ChatGPT to summarize news stories from brands like Politico, Business Insider, Built, Welt, and other well-known online and real world publications. So what's going to happen is the user will be able to go to say the website of the publisher, ask a question to it's their version of ChatGPT, and get a full summary of the article. And as this goes on, there's a similar thing is happening with Associated Press, allowing the archive of AP to be used for LLM training. Um,
I have a different issue though with this part.
but my
The
issue is
train,
media literacy training and people not forgetting the skills to fact check themselves. I think that's going to happen way faster than we think it will. I didn't mean to cut you off. Just want to get that one point in.
that's so cool. Yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And I think that first of all, can I just say, why is OpenAI trying to become a search engine as opposed to, I don't know, solving problems that like humans need solved, like, you know, housing insecurity. Mine is not housing insecurity, but homelessness, or foods or medications or pharma or whatever. Instead of like, let's try to become a search engine.
Someone's got to pay
The
for all this.
Right. But the thing is, okay, I have two problems with this. One, I didn't know the German publications. And apparently, from what I was reading online, the German publications are actually considered the most non-factual German publications in Germany. So that's that. So why don't we not pick people who put out disinformation to present to people? But also, if I read a Atlantic article or New York Times article, it's different than when I just get like my quick news in the morning, right? Quick news in the morning is like the is going to vote on this. Okay. Later, I'll look up the deep article to know all the ins and outs of that. But I know that's quick news. Quick news, I don't have a problem with. But if I'm getting a summary of what the chat, I miss all the logic, the framing, the context, the background. It's like, let's make sure news is super easy to ingest. It shouldn't be super easy to ingest. How do you understand complex issues in the world if all you're getting is a 200 word summary of every article? You don't. You won't.
Well, you know what?
And
All I
so
can say
I
to
have an
that
issue
is
with that.
hopefully better than one does getting news directly from social media.
No, but you won't because, like I said, some of the sources here are considered very disinformational.
Yeah.
So we're letting some AI company choose which news sources to summarize to people without proper depth and breadth of the content. I think that's just dangerous, and I think OpenAI should be doing more important things with their tech than that. And also, this leads to something, and I'm sorry, this is not on the story list. So, Jim, if you do not know about it, I apologize. But they have a company that launched this week that is going to give you an AI newscaster that you can design to give you news in a similar kind of format. And it will create news too with AI. So, so there is a reason that protecting journalism in the United States is written into, right, our Constitution and Bill of Rights because they consider it so important to keep in check things like government, right? So I think it's a very dangerous playing field that is completely unregulated, that these companies can just go ahead and start creating news off of with AI. Because we already just talked about how wrong it can be and how it's recursive and how less reliable it gets the more recursive it is. And we know that these are all part of the model that they can't fix right now. There are no solutions for this. It is part of the model. It is not a bug. It is part of how it works. And now we're going to have AI companies giving you news and they decide which news sources to summarize.
You know what? We still live in a world where the dictum caveat emptor can apply to your information diet. The caveat emptor is may the buyer beware. You're responsible for the products that you buy and consume. If you purchase it, you should know what's in it. It's up to you.
Yeah, but that's
Same
not
thing. Well,
that.
no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. But that's how. But
But
honestly,
thank you for
that's
explaining
how it
those
is.
words. I
Whether
didn't know what
you
that
or
meant.
I like it or not, maybe there should be more restrictions. But we live in a world where there aren't. And so this is the thing that you have to do as a consumer, and you have to teach your children. Be very aware of why somebody is putting something somewhere. Why is somebody using this space to say something? Why is that on a television? Why is it on the newscast? Why is that there? Um, because it costs a lot of money to put something in print or on online or on the air. So there's often a reason behind it, not necessarily conspiratorial or commercial. Maybe it's to inform the public. That's often a very good reason for putting something in a newscast.
Right. Yeah.
But moving forward in a world where, as you said, Kristine, you won't know if it's fake or real. You need to people will need to ask really basic questions. And this is a world where we move forward so quickly. People aren't even bothering to stop to ask forgiveness anymore, much less permission.
Right. And and an interesting stat, the AI models relied on news publisher data at a factor of 5 to almost 100 compared to generic content. So they heavily relied on that content, and now they want to take it over. But also, like when you see that journalist on TV talking about the article, they spent like 2 years researching,
Mm-hmm.
2 years with
They spent
sources.
2 years learning about this. Yeah.
Exactly. And they have insights, perspectives that are very important to understanding whatever it is they're reporting on. And if you don't know those things, then and you're just getting some summary from a fake AI newscaster, because that's what they're doing on this one channel. I just think you lose so much. So you're right. I think people need to be aware. Personally, um, I think there's a human, by the way, I'm not using this in any sort of political, historical context, Jim. A human first component, which is make sure there's human review, make sure that you're getting your news from a real person, not an AI created. Because it'd be very easy, because remember, these models can be poisoned, right? So it's very easy for someone to poison who has the resources, not just
Um,
you and me,
and
to poison a
and
model
if I
to say
remember
what it
correctly,
wants.
Fox News has been around for over 20 years now, and that was fake news coming out long before the AI revolution.
Right, but
No,
now you don't know. Now
it's
you
all
wouldn't
an
know
intent.
now you wouldn't
Humans,
know it's Fox
non-humans, it's
News.
all an intent.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but I just find it concerning, and I do think there should be regulations around news production and AI. Probably maybe one of the first places they need to regulate, because just to make sure that they're legitimately putting out, real things.
Now,
So
if you notice that your pet AI is moving awful slow, that's because it is. Um, Bing Chat and Copilot would might be really useful for people, except it's moving incredibly slowly. Um,
yeah, and Deep Chat is not available to everybody. Deep Chat is a model that they're testing, but apparently the people that are using it, it's as slow as molasses in the Canadian winter.
yep, but that's okay. So it takes a lot of energy and a lot of processing power to move anything, like any question through AI, because it's literally up to. Do you know how long it takes for, like, say, your JavaScript to be downloaded, parsed, evaluated, and then executed?
By some
Well,
of my client sites, it can take minutes.
imagine having to think and read through everything that was ever been written on a certain topic before composing an answer, and then
Yeah, and
having to
by
do it over and over and over and over and over and over again for an endless stream of questions.
yeah, and just to by the way, so we got some clarification from Fabrice from Bing
Oh yeah,
that the process is not just deep search. This is just in general where they bring back grounding. It's called grounding basically when you go do a search in Bing Chat. I'm sorry, I'm not going to call it Copilot just because it'll confuse everybody because everything now is called Copilot.
indeed.
Yeah. So Bing Chat, when you do a search there, it's not go in the chat model. It has a co-process under something called Prometheus, which is orchestrator, and it goes out and it gets articles and it grounds your search in what it retrieves. But this is not based on search engine results. So it's the same with DeepMind. It's not based on what a search engine would produce in the top 10 results. It has a different set of factors and a different set of ways that it matches the query and ranks things. So if you're in the top 10, let's say in Bing search for something, and someone does a search for that item, it doesn't mean that your site would be in the documents it brings back to produce that result. And that's called grounding, giving it somewhere to start.
And to bring back those documents to produce that result takes so much more resources, so much
Mm-hmm.
more energy, so much more time, so much more
Much
processing
more.
power.
Exactly.
So if you think your pet robot, your pet chat bot is moving a little bit slowly, it is.
Yes.
That's and it may or may not speed up. They'll have to throw a few more processors at it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and deep search is even like Barry can't access deep search, and Barry Schwartz can't get access to it because it's so slow. They don't want to release it to the public yet. So
AI. The AI is so slow it can't keep up with Barry Schwartz.
yeah, so it's
Oh,
like
that's
yeah,
actually the new
well,
metric.
well, that's what he says, the
That's the new
Barry
metric
metric,
from Google. Can he keep up
the
with
Barry,
Barry or not?
the Barry ranking factor.
Okay. Last bit on AI. We're gonna move to some SEO stuff, but this one's kind of weird. And then Kristine, I'm gonna really have to lean on you for this because I wasn't around last week, and if I was, I would have been all over this story. Google Gemini finally seeing the day of light. But what did we see? I mean, like, we're worried about AI and we're worried about fakes in AI.
Oh
And
wow.
as it turns out, when Google was making a very real video about AI, they faked it. Well, WTF?
I know, right? Like someone wrote like, well, they always exaggerate. No, no, no. This is the new breakthrough technology they spent months working on that's supposed to take on ChatGPT, and it's slightly better than ChatGPT on the testing, but only slightly, like by two. Like they perform better on 32 tests. And ChatGPT is 30 tests, how they perform. But anyway, so yeah, so they do this thing, and I don't know if you've seen the video, Jim, but they start with a duck, this blue duck, and you make a picture of you draw the picture of the blue duck, and then it knows what the blue duck is, then it talks to you, and of course, if you hear the voice on the demo, the voice is not a synthesized voice, it's a real voice. But um so it's highlighting the interaction, showing the multimodal model, except it didn't do any of those things. So yeah,
So,
so
so Google's thingamabob didn't do what they
it
said it
did,
did.
but
Why
not the
did Google
way.
do what they clearly did and fake it? Why did Google do this? Like, what?
I
Why
I
would they do
don't
this?
I don't know why, as a company as big as Google, with the reputation of Google, would feel the need to do this, but basically what they did is like they show like a game of ball and cups, right? And it knows what the ball is, and they show you do it in a drawing, and it makes the drawing, and it like skips all these steps, right? Like it just intuitively knew that where the ball was under your cups. It just intuitively knew that that was a blue duck you were drawing, right? No, they had prompt engineers write text prompts. And of course, prompt engineers make a lot of money to be very good at this, right? So it's not you and me sitting around going, do a blue duck. And so the prompt engineers created text-based prompts that created the result. And apparently they do say it in the small print somewhere on the page, but nobody saw that. Um,
So
so
basically,
it's
Google mechanical Turked us.
It did. Yes, basically, that's what it did. So it's like even though but the video is so detailed, like it's like here's like what they said on the rock, paper, scissors. What do you think I'm doing? Hint, it's a game. Gemini, you're playing rock, paper, scissors. And then it's like, despite the similarity, they don't feel like the same interaction. They feel like fundamentally different interactions. So it's like, but when they change the game up a little bit. So it's like it said all these things that made it sound like it was analyzing, evaluating, and coming to conclusions, which AI, it was, first of all, this isn't really AI, it's machine learning, but it is not capable of doing all that. Google is capable of producing multi-model, you know, things like with mum during COVID. During COVID, the top of the search results would have graphs and videos and text that the mum model had put together and written. So they are capable of doing all that, but I don't know why they would do this because I believe, I have to double check, but I believe their stock dropped after it was revealed that they simulated and these weren't actually how the model worked. So I don't really know what the thinking behind that was.
Well, Google doesn't like to be gamed, but and so it's not okay for Google to game us. Like that's just that anyway. Gemini is actually a very incredibly robust machine learning set of I almost want to call it a suite of things because it's not just one um, function. It will perform a myriad of functions when how to say this. Actually, it's out there on the open market now, but it's a trust thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and the writer at the TechCrunch is the one who had the article about being faked. First one I saw. And the author even goes through that he feels his logic of calling it faked. Because he's like, he wasn't sure if such harsh language was justified, but a spokesperson asked me to change because the spokesperson asked him to change it. I've had that happen. Google's asked me to change an article. But despite including some real parts, the video simply doesn't reflect reality. It is fake. So I don't know why they would do that. I mean, they have a trust factor, Google does. And also, putting out a fake video when you're that big and you're on the stock exchange, it has other implications too, right? So I don't really know what they were thinking,
Yeah.
but they did it. And so when you see that video, realize that yes, it is doing some of the things that it shows, but only because a prompt engineer uh, knew how to write the prompts to get it to do those things. And it didn't just intuitively analyze, because that gives the false perception that these models have the ability to think like a human, evaluate like a human, and come to conclusions like a human. And none of that is the case at this point. It is not that powerful.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. Let's talk a little bit about SEO, but it's December. It's getting really close to Christmas. This is silly season. Like it's past Thanksgiving. It's past Black Friday, Cyber Monday. This is absolutely silly season. And the big controversy in the last week, as far as I can tell, was around Google. Besides faking their AI videos, was the use of the term parasite SEO.
Yeah, we don't seem to have agreement on that yet from Google, what that means.
Okay, so yeah, Google's cracking down on quote unquote parasite SEO. Now, that could mean a number of things. It could mean using a other domain's strength or strong a page rank to promote your own content, much like a guest blog would. Or it could be buying space at, say, Forbes, who notoriously sells space for people hawking whatever
But
they're hawking. Or it
but
could be hijacking your way into someone's domain.
yes, but
Or it could be go for it.
no, I was going to say, so traditionally, although I like this term for it better, authority sitting, squatting, authority squatting. It kind of covers all scenarios. But and that's from Irish Wonder on Twitter.
Okay.
But so yeah, so I asked Danny about a couple of them, and Danny Sullivan at Google Search Liaison. Sorry, sometimes I say those things forgetting. Not everyone knows who I mean when I say Danny. Um, that originally it's just parasite SEO is just the people who are hacked, according to Google. So that's originally their concept of it. You were hacked, someone's using your site, you don't know about it,
Mm-hmm.
or you do know about it, you can't get rid of it, something like that. And so they want to devalue those pages, but not your website. But then when I asked Danny about it further, because I said there's kind of different terminology, he says on Parasite SEO. We don't use that term internally. I expect you'll see us assign a term to this type of activity in the near future, along with further guidance, as is touched on. He gives me a tweet link. We do have some guidance about this type of activity on the page below, where the key definition involves it being from a third party and largely independent of the main site's purpose, or produced without close supervision or involvement of the primary site. So that does do hacking. That doesn't apply to advertisements. Forbes does mostly advertisements, because they clearly mark those as advertisements. But it could, and I have a scenario that happened years ago, and this is the one I was asking Danny about. And this does sound like it could fall under it. He hasn't agreed yet, but we'll see. But I was working on a publisher site, big name publisher, and at the time, this group went around, and it might have been former eHow people. I'm not sure I'm 100% correct on that, but they went around and they asked to buy the subdomains of these companies. And they would put on the subdomains all this content. Now we found out later that content was all eHow devalued content from Panda, where eHow lost all its traffic. People don't remember eHow. It used to be, they have a new eHow, but back then it was like how to do brain surgery, open head,
Home
take
brain
out
surgery. Yeah.
brain, you put brain back in. So it was really bad thin content. And so when Panda came out, they got annihilated. They lost like 90% of their traffic. So someone got all that content and put it on these subdomains. And then there was an ad fraud network involved. We won't get into that. So, but technically, that because under contract, they controlled the subdomain completely. I helped the company get out of their contract. So I saw the contract and they controlled it. Even if the main domain went out of business, they would still have to keep the subdomain up and open for these people. And these people had total control 100% over what went on that. I do believe for Danny that would fall under Parasite SEO. So under the new definition he outlined on Twitter, because the main site owner doesn't have control over the content on that subdomain.
Okay, so we're not talking, say, a guest blog network. Although
No,
the way
well, no,
Google was
no,
describing it
oh,
last week, it felt like they could be
no.
describing that.
Guest blog networks do you don't do those because
Though
I'm sorry.
they have their own reasons to be
Yeah, that's
penalized, but that's
different.
something
That's
different.
different. That's different. Yeah, this is. I'm. Let's just say not that the White House would do this. It's just a site I can say without getting anybody in trouble. This the White House whitehouse.gov decides they're going to have a site that sells ice cream cones or something, right? And they're going to give all the control to that site to somebody else, and it's going to sit on icecreamcones.whitehouse.gov, right? None of that would ever happen.
Well,
But if they
that's more of
did,
a Joe Biden administration thing. But the porn and the Cialis and Viagra ads, that was definitely that was under control of the Trump administration, was it not?
well, yeah, let's not go down that road. But you know what's so funny is I didn't even think Biden and ice creams when I said that. I was just trying to think of something so generically non-controversial, and it's like ice cream. But the point being is, if I had a subdomain and it said ice cream whitehouse.gov, and I gave control over to somebody else under this new definition that they're trying to actually come up with a name for it, it does sound like that would also be a problem for you. So I don't know what publishers are going to do because the publishers do this for. I feel bad for publishers. They do this to make money because so much of their revenue streams have been cut off, right? So it's for them to like be penalized for, right? Because it depends also too. Because I know somebody who does this kind of
So are we talking about like the taboola content you might find on a news site that takes you off
no,
to like just
no,
egregiously
no.
bizarre?
I don't care about that. No. This
Okay.
isn't stuff that you put on your site. This is stuff that you give over
Without close
control.
supervision or involvement of the primary
Yeah.
site, though. I mean, Google's been close about that. I'm not putting it on my site because I'm closely supervising it myself, am I not?
Well, no. I mean, you'd have supervising with intent that you have the ability to control what's going on there. And so I would say like, so I know somebody we're gonna have on the show. He was gonna be on this week, but unfortunately he had two new babies, and the babies are in the NIC unit because they're premature. They're fine, but John McAlpin. But he works on a site where they legitimately do affiliates for publishers, and
Hmm.
they use real content, they use real reviews, they do real product demonstrations, they
And
do
they're
real
going to get
product
burned on
testing.
this, aren't they?
No, well, they're not supposed to, according to the discussions with Danny, because
Hmm.
that's not without control, and that's not without their oversight, and that's not without their review, right? They're doing all the things you're supposed to do for a review. They're doing
I
real
think they're going to
product
get
reviews.
burned.
I think unfortunately that might happen. Yes, I think Google will be too broad, and that will happen. But I'm just saying that the intent is it wouldn't be those kind of people that would get hit. It's the people like what I just talked about with eHow, who took over by contract, took over the subdomain and put on the devalued eHow content while they ran an ad fraud network. And I say ad fraud because they hid ads in iframes that you couldn't see. So it would get impressions and clicks, even though no one knew they were actually seeing any of the ads
Hmm.
because they weren't visible. So that was the ad fraud, and that's why they did it because they did on these subdomains and ad fraud. That's how I got these people out of their contract. I talked to the lawyers and I said, "We discovered your ad fraud network, so either you let them out or I go to we take other legal channels." And so they let them out of the contract. But that would be where they had no control. They had no control over what happened to their subdomain. They had no access to their subdomain anymore, except possibly to turn it off. And the company had purchased that for 5 years. So even if the main domain went down and decided to go out of business, they would have to keep the subdomain up. And that's what I think they're talking about. But you're right. I do think, unfortunately, sites like John works with, even though they're doing it all legitimately, they're doing real reviews and real product, testing and real content. People are really using the products that they could wind up swept up in that. But we won't know yet until because Google hasn't even named it yet. Apparently, they don't like our names anymore. It'll be something boring. Like update March 2023.
Well, indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a recent update, and I can't say exactly when this happened, I know a site that I worked on that had invested heavily in video got hit at the end of August, early September, but it was just the beginning of December that Google sort of said, this is what we're doing and why. And this is the video is not the main content of the page error. I'm not so sure it's an error. I'm not quite sure. This is again, I haven't been around for the last week. I'm not sure why
Yeah.
they're calling this an error. I think Google screwed up by not telling people what it was doing. Remember, did you get a bunch of messages for different clients in Search Console? You suddenly lost a bunch of videos in video pages because video is not in the main viewport.
Yeah, and I would send it to the devs, and they're like, "No, it's right." And I'm like, "I know, but could you just check because it says that it's not? I
Because
just
the
need to
first thing you
know."
thought is this is a measuring issue.
Yes, which
It's
is,
obviously too wide for the page or something.
and it was listed as that in the definition in Google Developer Docs, just to be fair to everybody. If you're thinking, "What? Am I crazy?" No, you're not. They did not. They did not redefine it in the developer docs until I think just really recently, right? They did
No, no, actually,
redefine it
that no,
recently.
they in the developer docs they did redefine it
No,
because
recently though.
that's where I found the answer back in September. I remember
Yeah,
I
no, I'm
remember
talking. I was
freaking when this
looking.
happened
I was looking
until
last year, earlier
sorry.
this year. It wasn't redefined earlier this
It
year.
was not redefined earlier this
Yeah,
year. It
yeah.
happened. They made the change in the developer docs. They didn't say anything to anybody. And then some websites, I think I might have been one of the first major websites hit by this. Because again, this is I noticed that we were losing video pages back in August, late August, and started getting worried about it. We investigated, found out that our videos were relatively sized. They fit just fine. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that. And that's when we started going through every doc we could possibly get our hands on and found that Google um, wanted the video to appear within the viewport of the page as it's initially loading in a on a mobile device. So you got to be able to see it on your mobile phone as the page loads. That's what the message appeared out video outside of viewport. That's where I think they made an error because outside of viewport does mean it's sized wrong. That's what it's always meant.
Yeah, but you said it's something related to it being in the page load, right?
And so what Google wanted to do was
Yeah.
to redefine what a video page means. And so any page that didn't have a video that would appear as the page initially loaded in the viewport of a mobile device, that page was no longer considered a quote unquote video page and looked like it was being de-indexed. What was happening is it just wasn't being considered a video page anymore. But it, it started to affect impressions. There are direct correlations, and you can see this. I can see this in Search Console. Glenn Gabe shared information with Barry at Search Engine Roundtable today. Uh, from some of his clients, there is a direct correlation in loss of impressions, and not just video impressions, but loss of actual impressions because of the loss of video on sites that featured video at one time. So there's Google changing the way it feels about your page. It's not a video page, quote unquote, video page anymore. That is appearing to have a direct impact on appearances of video in search results, which naturally has a direct impact on the number of clicks going back to your page.
Yeah, I had someone who had to have a video drop, not for this reason, but they lost 70,000 visits a month off of one video dropping.
And was this recent?
No, it was earlier in the year, but still, I
Video
mean,
is
it
very
was
powerful. Like
yeah,
like
it's very
like
powerful. Yeah.
the web has actually moved from being a text medium to more of a video medium. And video is incredibly powerful. So if you lose that space, especially after Google had told us for the last like year, invest in video, give people as many different paths to the information as possible, including YouTube. So yeah, we invest in video, and this is what we get for it. Thanks, Google.
Yeah, yeah. And so outside viewport means not necessarily it's just too tall or too wide, but the video is not loaded in the initial viewport. So people understand that. So when they say outside, they also mean, hey, we started loading the page, but there's no video in the viewport, and it comes in the bottom of the page or it comes in later in the load, which happens a lot because videos are heavy. So they might the developers might have, deferred the load of the video. But if it's outside the viewport, it's not just height and width. It also means outside as in it didn't come in initially on the page, so we're not considering this a video page.
Well, I'm betting that language is gonna change sometime in the future.
I
Because,
hope so, because it's really confusing.
well, indeed, what do you? I mean, like, really, they tell us one thing,
Yeah.
and then we do it. Like video costs a lot of money. My client has lost over 30,000 videos, like not impressions. I'm
Wow.
talking specific videos, each of which
Wow.
had 10, hundreds, or even thousands of impressions, depending on the video. So this ain't no small thing. This is actually like some sizable metrics. I got to dance around.
And
I
people
did
put,
not that I got
nobody,
dance around. They invested in this. This is for like
yeah.
time and money,
And,
right?
and I'm sure people were just thinking like everyone I know was, including myself, that it just meant it's too big or too, it's too tall or it's too wide for the viewport and you need to fix that. And then your developers are like, it's not too tall or wide. What are you talking about? You're like, I don't know. And then now we find out it didn't load in the initial viewport. Therefore, we do not consider it part of the page or a video page, which means it is good to put your videos at the top of the page because that is when they most likely will get rendered inside the initial viewport.
Okay, so now you got yourself an LCP issue because videos are big. And this
Yes,
is
and
now this is your largest contentful paint, right? Like you got a page speed issue. Throw it inside of an iframe and just put the thumbnail in there, and that'll
yeah,
that that will you'll still have an LCP issue, but it won't be as bad.
yes, this is true. Very true.
Trust me, you will still have the issue. I don't care what the directive is. Um, you will still have an issue. You can't avoid it. You can't lightweight a YouTube video, even if you thumbnail it. You can't. You just can't. Because they got to download at least a part of that video for it to show in the
Yeah,
iframe.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Um.
by the way, if you're looking for some fun stuff from Google this week, just a reminder that they're putting out all their like this most searched this and the most searched that on their Google Twitter feed.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, yeah.
Is
So
that
I
out
bet
there
you
today?
they've been doing it over the past few days, but they have some for today. So, who do you think the most searched for performer is?
The
I'll
most
give you
searched for
three
performer
guesses.
in
Yeah.
2023, I'm going to be guessing is Taylor Swift.
Yes, exactly. So
Who's the second most searched for
it did,
performer?
I did not play it because it's a video and we're on air, so it probably wouldn't be good to play that while we're
Okay. Oh my
talking.
God, they got it all like Google Wrapped, huh?
Yeah, but basically, yeah, Google Wrapped for search. So
Had they published that in an HTML or a PDF document, they would have liked either way.
this is true. We found that out this week.
They didn't have to publish it in video. They could have published it on a PDF. Because yeah, apparently Google can read PDF just fine. But the really cool thing is if you publish the same content in HTML and PDF, you're not going to get dupe content penalty, and you might get two placements for the same document, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And if they decide it's duplicate enough that they don't want to show, they'll show the HTML one most likely. Not always, but most likely.
Yeah, but they're not gonna dupe all over you for throwing dupe content on them, right? Not in this way.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there'll be an update in like I don't know 15 to 20 minutes to nullify this, right?
You
Do you think there's going to
know,
be another update before the end of the year? 2 weeks.
nah,
They got 2 weeks
nah,
to get it in. You think they're gonna?
nah, nah. I don't. I think it's too. Normally they shut off the update thing around the first week in December. So I think they put in there for their vacations long before Project Gemini took too long to deploy, which is why everything I think was pushed back. So I'm sure that because especially a lot of international workers with Google, right, who get 2 and 3 weeks vacation at the holiday. So I imagine that they're probably slowing down now, and they'll come back though the first week in or second week in January with some big updates.
Well, hold on to your horses. We will be broadcasting in the way Christmas works out this year. We're broadcasting all the way through. So we're here next week. We're here the week after, 21st and 28th.
Yay! We got some good guests for you too, because we
We
have
have some big guests coming up. We have
Gavin
the
coming
end of,
on.
yep, we have the end of year coming on. And we also have end of show coming on because we've gone all the way around the clock. And I know that there's another show coming up at the studio. So we got to get moving. Um, Interesting week. There'll be two more before the end of the year, and then we're into 2024.
Oh my gosh.
So, if you're celebrating Christmas, you have 11 days to get your shopping done. Um, if you're in the tech world, the way it works out this year, you're pretty much going to be forced to work the 3 days before Christmas and the 3 days before New Year's. That's
It's
just
on
the
a
way it's going to be
weekend.
this year. Christmas
Yeah,
falls on a
weekend.
Monday, the worst possible day it could fall on for people who want time off.
True. Well, unless it's Sunday. But
And of
but
course, unless it's
but
Saturday, Sunday, that's right.
yeah. But real quick, because I didn't get to say real quick. Gavin Klondike, who's been on our show before to explain LLMs, he's an AI researcher, helps at the AI research village at DEF CON, is going to come on to talk about the SGE patent and some of the new things that have been coming out from Google with search and AI. So it'll be a really interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the meantime, friends, this is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media on behalf of Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls. You've been listening to Webcology on WMR.fm. Want to say thanks to Darren and Brandy and to Ricky and Brasco in the studio. Uh, Friends, be kind to each other, rank well, read the search and read and appreciate the search news, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.